Welcome to Intro to Studying Video Games from Video Game Culture and Theory at Seton Hill University. I'm Dennis Jerz. Today I would like to just go over some of the terms in the course name. This course is part of a special topics course called Major Writers and Genres. We can talk about what that means. We'll talk about what is a genre, what is a video game, and then what do we mean by video game culture and video game theory, and finally, what is scholarly study? Well, a special topics course simply means we don't have a standalone course on video games. So this class, EL 250 Major Writers and Genres, has a different topic each time it's offered. I've offered the video game class before, but I've also taught EL 250 as a dramatic literature course. I've also put together a Disney worldview class. So we'll talk about a genre now. Genre in literature, there are three main literary genres, just simply ways that we can divide things up. There's narrative, and there's poetry, and there's drama. Narrative comes from a root word that means tell, and you can see some examples of what narrative is there. Novels, fiction, biographies, essays, does not have to be fiction. Poetry is about using words to make things, and the root word for poetry comes from a Greek word meaning make, and limericks and sonnets and free verse and rap lyrics are all examples of poetry. Dramatic genre, drama comes from a root word that means to do, and there's you can break up drama into comedy and tragedy, and I could do a whole class just on drama, so but I won't, not now. Genre in other fields, well, in art, you could break art up according to the material that the artists use, whether it's stone or paint or clay. In music, you can break up music according to the needs and expectations of the audience, whether that audience is traditional or popular or serious, with quotation marks around serious. Science, you might be familiar with certain genres in science, such as a lab report or a textbook, but there are also funding proposals and literature surveys and research papers and position statements. So even within the field of science, there's a whole lot of different written genres. Now, in a couple previous centuries, opera as high culture held a very important place because so many other art forms contributed to opera. We have demanding innovations from many artists, such as the composer, who was a writer of plot and dialogue, as well as, of course, a writer of music. The singers would also act and dance and fight as the plot depended on it. There also was in opera a design team, an important design team that had contributions, not only everything that you saw on stage, but the sets and even the opera houses themselves. And in order to allow the audience to experience the opera, the artists would innovate in lighting and acoustics. And there's some crossover there into science. And a question to put to you is, are video games driving digital culture in a way that opera drove culture in previous centuries? Okay, let's talk specifically about genre in video games. Now, genre simply means a way of dividing things up, and you could divide video games up according to the kinds of skills and activities that the game calls for. So, for an action game, you might expect to have fast reflexes and the ability to track moving targets. In an adventure game, there's an emphasis on story and exploration. In a strategy game, it's managing resources and building networks. A multiplayer online role-playing game, again the resources, but teamwork becomes extremely important. Ralph Koster's book, A Theory of Fun, is a great introduction to the many different ways that we play games and many different ways that games can be fun, so I won't go into any of that detail right now. It's important to note that these genres are not exclusionary. That is, you could put targeting and shooting in an adventure game, just like you could put a comic character or a comic scene in a tragic play. These categories are not meant to be exclusive, simply descriptive. Well, what is a video game? Does it require a computer? Does it require a TV? How about an oscilloscope? You know, one of those wavy things that you use to measure frequencies. What is a video game? What does a massively multiplayer online game like World of Warcraft have in common with this little classic block-fitting game from the 80s, Tetris? Those are some of the questions that we'll be looking at. But let's back up a little bit. What is a game? Not just a video game. Do you need scoring? Do you need points? Do you need competition in order for something to count as a game? Let's start working towards a definition of a game. Let's call it, for now, a system of rules that reward extra effort invested into reaching a goal in a non-optimal way. Now, there are always going to be easier and more direct ways to reach a desired goal. But in soccer, we all agree that only goalies can use their hands, at most of the time. In poker, you're not supposed to see your opponent's cards for most of the time. In hopscotch, if you lose your balance, you forfeit. And in tic-tac-toe, you need to get 3 in a row, but you have to take turns. If my goal in tic-tac-toe is just to get 3 in a row, I might try to amuse my kids by pretending that I don't know that on my first turn, I'm not supposed to write down 3 X's in a row. They might laugh if they're not annoyed at me, simply because it's preposterous that somebody who says he's playing tic-tac-toe would violate this sacred central rule of turn-taking that's so much a part of tic-tac-toe. A game can be a way to show off, something that you do the hard way. You might show off by overcoming these artificial restrictions, such as only goalies can use their hands most of the time. You might say, I'll fight you with one hand tied behind my back. That's an artificial restriction that makes a fight into something that approaches being a game. If you take something that you can do really well and you defamiliarize it in order to make it more rewarding, that's approaching making it a game. You're navigating your backyard with your eyes closed. Now, a 50-yard race and a football match are both sports, but only one is a game. Now, if you make people race for 50 yards while hopping in potato sacks or blindfolded, that takes the skill of running and it hampers it. It constrains it in a way that makes the goal harder to achieve, so that you have to use skill, and you appreciate the skill, and you perhaps award points for the skill that it takes to reach that simple goal in a non-simple way. Now, there's a difference between playing and playing a game. Children can play house or they can play with a ball, but they don't necessarily have to be playing a game. Play is a larger concept than game. But even simple rules imply games. They may be very simple games. Playing house and tea party have really complex social rules, even though there isn't really a point system or a reward system. But keep away and toss it back and forth are games that we play with a ball, even if we don't keep score. So there are ways that you can negotiate, and my children are both experienced negotiators since I decline to referee their sibling squabbles. So turning play into a game is an option. You don't have to play a game every time that you play. Well, what is video game culture? Now, I could take a whole lecture addressing the question, what is culture? But let's just refer to it as all the stuff that groups of humans agree to do in a certain way when they get together.